Hello and welcome back to my Kansas City Royals series here on Out of the Park Baseball. You can see we finished the year at a disappointing 64-98. If we take a look at last year's record, we were better. We were better by one game, so not too impressive, I have to say. If we look at our team stats, we were 13th in runs scored and 12th in runs allowed. I think that is slightly better than last year, but again, nothing that you should really be proud of. We'll take a look at our players in just a second, but I just wanted to give you guys an update on what happened just around the league. So the Minnesota Twins finished with a whopping 109 wins, which is very impressive, and then the Dodgers finished with 110 wins, which is even more impressive. So two very good teams, clearly. A lot of really good teams, actually. Even the Cubs had 104 wins. And then in the postseason, unfortunately, it was very boring again. It was the Dodgers versus the Astros. This time, the Dodgers won. But yeah, it's been 3 years in a row where that's the matchup. So hopefully we can get some diversity next year in terms of who wins the World Series. But for our players, things overall were disappointing. I mean, obviously, they're going to be disappointing if you have 64 wins. Blake Snell, he did finish the year better than where he was at the trading deadline, but 4.94 ERA, not something that we are looking for from him, and did not have too many strikeouts and a lot of walks. So, he's got to improve, that's for sure. We're hoping he's a number 2 or number 3 starter. Certainly not, a stereotypical ace, but he is our ace right now. Brian Johnson did not do as well in the second half. I'm fine with him having like a 4.5 ERA though. Like if I can get that out of him, that's no problem. That's just like a number 4 or number 5 guy. But it was Chua who had a 6.02 ERA. So obviously not what we were looking for there. And we did call up Sean Reed-Foley at the end of the year, who was awful. We got Foley in the Danny Duffy trade, I believe. But, he'd been okay in the minors, so hopefully he can make some strides next year. Bullpen was hit or miss. Lovelady was hit, Pointer was a miss, and Gabao was mostly a hit. Another thing to note was Cody Reed. We had gotten him for some nothing trade with the Reds and just hope that he would kind of pan out. Looking like those ratings not as high as we had hoped, and he definitely did better than last year when he had an 8.82 ERA, but still 5.27, not really what you're looking for. And then offensively, you can see it was Alex Gordon who led the way. He had a better than average offensive season, and obviously going along with that defense, he was going to be a 3-win player. Dawel Lugo, who we got in the Rule 5 draft, ended up hitting almost 300 and had a slightly above average season in terms of WAR. Reese McGuire, Nicky Lopez, Hanser Alberto. I think these were all guys who, started off not very good, but in the second half, they definitely played a lot better. But unfortunately, Bradley Zimmer, not really doing much of anything. You can see hitting 200 again and was just a replacement level player. That defense so good, but you can only do so much when you're hitting literally 200. So first, I just wanted to take a look at some of our prospects. You can see our minor league system is now 20th out of 30 overall, so definitely an improvement there. But if we just kind of go around, there's only a couple people that I'm really excited about. And one of that is obviously our number 3 overall pick last year, Nick Madrigal. Seems to be doing really well. Was a little bit maybe out of his element in AAA. He had a nice 400 on base percentage, but not a lot of contact and power there. But obviously these ratings are really, really good. So I'm thinking about keeping him in AAA to start the season, at least get that extra year of service time. Beyond that, I could totally see him coming up to the majors really at any point during the year. Mondesi, another middle infielder prospect, did not do too well in the majors. Had a heck of a year in AAA, so it's been a couple of years now where we've been hoping he'll make the jump. And if we look at some other prospects, Walt Lewis was our supplemental pick last year. Those ratings looking pretty good, but he did struggle in rookie ball, that is for sure. Bauman was another supplemental pick, and Gigliotti we actually put in the majors for a little bit last season. You can see he did pretty terrible. Pretty similar to Bradley Zimmer, actually, where basically hitting 200, no power, but good defense. So these ratings, I think, again, they look pretty good. He's 1.5 star overall, at least according to our head scout. And, hopefully he can come in next year and play a little bit better. With that said, let's take a look at some of our options here. So you can see Alex Gordon voided his last contract year. I thought it was actually a team option, but it seems that it was a player option, so I'm very glad that he opted out. Do not really want him on the team next year, even though he had a good year last year. He's 35 years old, so didn't really want to pay him $20 million. And Dylan Betances is also not going to execute his option. I would have been disappointed at this, except that he literally tore his ACL. So I don't know why in the world he would want to opt out of the contract, but it certainly helps us. And then the other thing is, unfortunately, our owner is starting to be a little bit upset at us, which I don't really blame him. I was hoping to be better this year. We signed a good amount of free agents. They weren't great free agents, but they, should have helped. And really just kind of all around not happy, but that's okay. Our budget is going to be a little bit less this year, but because we are getting rid of Alex Gordon's contract, you can see we do have quite a bit of money for free agents if we want. I'm not really sure who would be in the market for, but I guess we will play that by ear. In terms of salary arbitration, we're going to let Jesse Hahn and Nathan Carnes go. You can see they were not very good for us last year. And Brandon Marr, I'm also going to let go too. These numbers are from AA, not the majors. He did not do well in the major leagues. But Tommy Joseph, which is just a right-handed hitting first baseman, Hanser Alberto, Ronald Torres, who actually got in a trade from the Yankees. This is another kind of extra depth in the middle infield that we probably don't need, but they were just going to trade him for some AAA first baseman, so I had to do that. And then the other guy we're re-signing is Jorge Bonifacio, who had 25 home runs, but at least in terms of the WAR, he wasn't really that great. So as I take a look at Alex Gordon and renegotiating a contract, looks like he just wants a 2-year deal at $4 million per year. I would definitely think about that, but I'm not necessarily going to pull the trigger. Unfortunately, what this means is that we're not really going to be able to get a compensation pick out of him, because I'm sure he would take 1 year for $15 million. No one else that I would really offer a qualifying offer to, so looks like this is going to be a pretty easy offseason. All right, so we have simmed ahead a little bit to free agency. Just wanted to go over some of the player awards from this year. So Cody Bellinger, who I think won it last year, was the MVP. He hit, again, 50 home runs for the second straight year. We'll see if that actually happens in real life. Bryce Harper also had a 50 home run season for Minnesota. That's probably part of the reason they had 109 wins. Syndergaard won the NL Cy Young, very good season. And it is James Paxton, interesting, who won it in the American League. For the Silver Sluggers of the American League, does not look like we have anyone there. And we also did not win any Gold Gloves. So taking a look at our team, I think I had mentioned this a little bit around the trade deadline of last year. We basically have too many middle infielders and just a number of people who I would say are like 3-star prospects. So, I think it's time to sort of combine some of those people, maybe get some solid big league talent, or, potentially really bring home one really good prospect. So with that in mind, I think we are going to pull off 2 trades. It took me a while to really settle on 2. One of them is going to be with the Cincinnati Reds. It seems like Bradley Zimmer is getting a lot of interest, and I can kind of see why, but he really has not been able to put it together. And we've got another center field prospect who's kind of a lot like Zimmer in the making. So I could totally see where this backfires, but I think this might be a trade that we do. And the other guy we're giving up is Chase Vallot, who's a catching prospect. I don't like any of his numbers, so I'm happy to give him up. And in return, we'd be getting Luis M. Castillo from the Cincinnati Reds, who looks like a stud. And he's had 2.5 good seasons with the Reds. Obviously not quite as good this previous year, but overall been good. Only 2 years of service time, 2+ years of service time as well. And he's about to turn 27. So I think this is a deal that we are going to do, and it's going to bolster our pitching depth for sure. And then the second trade that I was thinking about is with the Milwaukee Brewers. This is a big trade, at least in terms of the number of people that are involved, but maybe not in terms of the quality of people that are involved. Sean Reed-Foley, we're going to be giving up. Obviously, I think he has potential. I think he could be a major league starting pitcher, but the movement and control is just something that I'm a little bit concerned about. We're going to give up Alberto Mondesi, who just has not been able to put it together at the major league level in a couple of attempts. I could totally see him being a decent everyday second baseman. And the other big guy that we're giving up is Forrest Griffin, who is definitely, again, solid pitching prospect. Nothing to write home about, but not too bad. And then this Grant Wolfram is just nothing. And in return, we're going to get 3 players. We're going to get Jacob Barnes, who looks really good. He is just a bullpen arm, though, so he is not going to be anything near the starting rotation. Really did not do well last year, but I expect that he will bounce back. You see, he's been good in the major leagues before. That's someone who I am excited to get. Trent Grisham, he's someone, we need a left fielder. I don't really know that he's going to be our left fielder, but certainly just another option in the outfield. Again, moving our depth from the middle infield to the outfield where we kind of need it right now. And the third guy we're getting is Josh Pennington, and I'm not really sure that he would be a starting pitcher, but you can see that his ratings are very good, and he could definitely try to be in the rotation. He's someone that hasn't really been in the majors yet. And I know people might be saying, why are you trading, 2 starting pitchers effectively for 2 people that are going to be relievers? And the answer is we kind of have a lot of starting pitchers already. You can see that we've got Blake Snell, Brian Johnson, and Chua. We just got that Cincinnati Reds guy, Castillo, in a trade. And there's a number of people like Trevor Oakes and Cody Reed who could also break that starting rotation potentially. Jake Junis, of course, is another guy as well. So I do think that we could use some strengthening on our bullpen, and Josh Pennington could also be one of those guys who, if he's not a consistent starting pitcher, he could definitely make spot starts. So I think we're going to do this trade as well. All right, so I've simmed ahead a little bit to the Rule 5 draft. Some interesting news. I'm not sure if this is the right time to be making these moves, but I think it might be. I mean, obviously, we've been very, very bad the last couple of years. We just made a move for Castillo. I can see our team kind of coming together, but clearly we need at least one more bat, and I mean at least one more bat. We probably need more than that. But I have offered 2 contracts, one to Jake Arrieta. This is a pretty low contract. I think it was $9.5 million for 2 years guaranteed, and then a team option for that 3rd year. Arrieta did not do well this year and was out for a lot of the year before, so obviously kind of a risk. However, if you look at the BABIP, you can see that it's just much higher than it's ever been any other year. So I think part of it is he was a little unlucky last year, and part of it as well, you can see the home runs per 9 was a little bit higher than it's been in the past generally for him. The walks a little bit up, but the strikeouts were still high. And so I think this is someone who, may not have, a 3.1 or, definitely not a 1.77 ERA or anything like that. But if he can get an ERA around 4, then the contract's worth it. So that's what I'm thinking there. And then for Goldschmidt, what I'm kind of looking at is just every year he's been really a 5-win player or so. And even a year that was really a down year for him where he hit 245, still a 4-win player. And, part of that's that he plays the game, all around pretty well. So I'm hoping that, he can be someone who really plays well for us. We are going to be offering him really a 4-year contract. First year is $30 million. Every year after that is $25. Then there's a team option for another $30 million a year if we want to have that. So, definitely a lot of money, but we have quite a bit of money to spend. And, even after this, we'll have about $10 million left. So I don't know. I think it might be worth it. I don't really want to, sit in the toilet for another year. So we may not make the playoffs or anything, but it'll at least help with attendance and our owner not hating us and just a couple things like that. And we'll get the 3rd overall pick next year anyway, so that'll help us in our rebuild process, to be sure. So this year, I really don't see anyone. Yeah, I don't really see anyone here, so we're just going to complete the draft. Okay, wow, so there are a lot of updates. We are actually at the beginning of the season here. We have won the first 2 games of the season, which is better than not winning the first 2 games of the season. So a couple of things of note. We did get who we wanted in free agency. However, we have some very significant injuries. So Jake Arrieta is going to be out for 5 weeks. That's something that we can deal with. We've got other depth that I'll show off in just a second. Josh Pennington is going to be out for 7 to 8 months. So again, he was someone that, could have been knocking on the door of the starting rotation, but, certainly we were hoping he would have been a good bullpen arm, and now he is not going to be on the team at all. And in addition, Nicky Lopez is out with a concussion for about 2 months, which is obviously very unfortunate. However, we did sign Paul Goldschmidt, so this is a very expensive contract. You can see approaching $30 million, but it is a short contract. So there are going to be 4 years guaranteed with a 5th-year team option. I think that's perfectly reasonable. We really needed a bat in our order. We just haven't had him. And Chris Davis is another guy that we got. You can see it's just a 1-year, $5 million deal. Davis is a guy who's hit 40 home runs 3 out of the last 4 years, and most importantly, he's been rated as an above-average player. So he will be slotting in at DH. So again, another power bat in the middle of the order. I think our lineup is shaping up. I don't really know that we are necessarily a contending team, but I think if things go well, we could be vying for that second wildcard spot. So if we take a look at the preseason predictions, we're expected to be 81 and 81. That's about where I would have put us. Hopefully, obviously, we do better than that. But yeah, I mean, considering how things have gone, you really just don't know what's going to happen during the course of a season. But I think that's going to do it for this episode. We're making a push for things, and we'll have the 3rd overall pick this year. So I'm happy with things. And obviously, I guess the one other thing to note is that Nick Madrigal will be coming up to the majors. He is looking like a stud, looking like a great 3rd overall pick, at least as of right now. He's going to be starting in the minors, but I'm thinking this is just a couple-week thing, especially with Nick Lopez having that concussion. I just want to get that extra year of service time because this guy really looking like a stud. So very excited to call him up. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys at the first-year player draft.